Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh overview, or review, or whatever you want to call it. I'm just playing with toys. Today we're going to take a look at the ThreeZero DLX Avengers Age of Ultron Iron Man Mark 43. I think that's it, XLII. And special thanks to ThreeZero for sending out an advanced review sample. I was really interested in this when they announced it was 1/12, but after looking at it for a minute, I know I'm going to have at least one problem with this figure, but maybe the other stuff will balance out. Looking at the box, ooh, it's fancy. Marvel Studios, The Infinity Saga, big party picture, Avengers Age of Ultron, Iron Man, Roman numerals. On the side, just Iron Man Mark 43. On the back, lots of words, lots of warnings. Choking hazard. Small parts may cause harm if swallowed by children. Do not place this action figure within your mouth. On the other side, those words again. There's a hologram right here to slow down pirates and bootlegs and such. On the top, same words. On the bottom, not a lot. And then there's a little Velcro holding the flap closed. On the inside, you see a fancy picture of this armor again, some close-ups. Then we get a look at the figure. One, it's wrapped in plastic. There's a lot of metallic paint going on there. You were probably worried about scratching. But two, the instructions in the background doesn't really make, or it doesn't fit the elegance, I guess, of the rest of the packaging. We're pulling it out. Let's get this out, see what's going on here. Oh, look at that. I pull it out, and there's stuff hidden behind those instructions. 2 trays. Oh my god, what? I didn't know I needed a booklet. This looks complicated. Now that you've seen this, you don't really need me to go through the figure. Oh, there's shit on the back. Okay, I do have an issue with its size, but that's later on in the video. Right now, let's focus on the overall look, and oh, it's so beautiful. The proportions, the sculpting, the colors, oh man, it's so just shiny and metallic, and ooh. I'm not the biggest Iron Man expert, especially when it comes to the differences between armor to armor to armor to armor, but from what I can tell, it's damn accurate. I love how the silver plays into the gold, into the red. We have that classic image of Iron Man, but as the movies went along, there was more technology added, there was different color schemes, there was different panels, and just little details. It looks a little busy in places, like the silver cutting into here, and little intricate details, but that's my jam right there. When there's something to look at all over the figure, even though there are smooth spots and nothing that's in between all these little panel lines, and again, silver cutting in, and this almost metallic, or well, mechanical, I guess you could say, undersuit. It looks like a suit of armor. It looks like I'm holding a piece of metal right now. And that may be because there are die-cast parts. I can't tell you which ones. This middle assembly definitely is. There's some parts and pieces up inside there. We'll look at that when we get to the articulation. There's a heaviness to it. There's a heft. It's substantial, and that makes a figure like this, of a character like this, just all the better. But when I think of ThreeZero, I think of the engineering, and I've only put hands on the DLX Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime. It's damn fantastic. It's a modern marvel of engineering when it comes to action figures. They tried everything to get as much movement as possible with this much seamlessness going on. First of all, they made a big deal about the back air flaps, and when I first flipped the figure over, I thought, is that a separate piece or what? But then I realized it's a hinge right there, and this just comes up. There's not any detail on the inside of the flap, but beautiful sculpt work right underneath there. They feel a little bit thin and flimsy, but as much as I've manhandled this thing in the past couple of hours, I haven't felt like I was going to break them off or anything. The big worry is when you have the arm in a certain position, the shoulder pad kind of comes over and gets in the way there, and it blocks. So you'll want to be aware of where everything is whenever you go to do something like this. They also put the shoulder pads on a double hinge so it can get out and out of the way of shoulder movement. The instructions mostly say get them out here, put the arm where you want it, and then bring it back down or wherever it needs to be. There's also a butterfly joint, which we saw in there. It's a neat thing to be able to see that where the pin is, and then the butterfly comes forward out of there. There's also this panel that comes forward to get out of the way of the butterfly forward. And of course, that's on the right side too, so they both come down so you can get the arms kind of closer together. There's also a removable flap on the forearm that we'll get to in accessories, but it's a neat little thing that it's barely noticeable when it's on there. My first time lifting the legs, boom. Again, go to the instruction manual. You have to kind of pull the panel out and then it moves down. That gets you leg all the way up. Down at the ankles, there is a dumbbell joint in there, and I've already blown the surprise, haven't I? The shin armor has a back flap here to get out of the way, and then a flap on the front to get up and out of the way of forward movement. But that does bring up one of my nitpicks. That ball joint down there is a little bit loose. The rest of the body has some very, very tight articulation in places. In fact, at first, I didn't think it had a side-to-side tilt. That assembly is very, very tight. It's loosened up a bit now that I'm moving it, but it's still kind of tough. But with all the metal and the heftiness of this, it is a little bit, of course you're gonna stand up. You get it off center a little bit and the ankles just kind of give under its weight. You have to get some balance set up. Ta-da! Articulation, there is a ball joint at the top of the neck along with a ball at the bottom. Doesn't look up quite enough for a realistic flight pose. Can look down a bit. Tilt, 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 tilt. Swivel. Like I said, before you start messing with shoulder and such, you want to take the shoulder pad, move it out of the way. Butterfly joint with the hinge forward moves out that far. And then there is a hinge on top of the butterfly that brings the arm up to here. On the outside of that is a swivel, so you can get the arm all the way around. And there's a hinge at the shoulder that brings it up to there. There is also a very tight swivel at the bicep. Double elbow comes around most of the way. That ball joint at the wrist gives a surprising amount of movement. For the torso, this is where I was most impressed with Optimus Prime. I'm impressed here too. At the top, there is this bar that comes up. That is on a hinge that goes forward. That whole assembly tilts side to side. Below that, there is a hinge at the waist and another hinge in the middle of the section that comes forward and forward. So assembled, you can go here and here for tilt and then kick forward, 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 forward to about right there. Then that can rotate up on top. Now the reason they did that is so it won't break up on the back whenever you come forward. It actually reveals part of the back and stays relatively seamless. It's just a beautiful look. The hip joint is also tight as hell. I don't know if it's done for stability or just because, but again, you want to take this flap on the front of the thigh down. That allows the swivel to come up to about right there. Goes back. Out is probably the tightest, and it goes, well, most of the way. Double knee, it's not going to kick his own ass. It's very, again, I don't know what's die cast and what's not, but it stops right there. And then at the angle, like we talked about, dumbbell joint, ball up top, ball down in the foot, can go out that far, in that far, back that far, forward that far. And there is some shift to it to give you just a little bit of extra movement. And then there is a toe joint to about right there. Okay, I'm coming back around from after I already did this review because I found another articulation point, or I actually looked closer at the instructions. I showed that the leg movement with this up will get you about right there. But then looking closer, you can pull that leg down at the thigh. With that, you can get up to here, and if you get creative with it, like bring it out just a little bit, you can go even further. And I missed a swivel at the waist. It's really well hidden behind the crotch piece. Boop, about right there to right there. And because of that, I'm able to get down into almost a proper superhero landing. If only the neck extended a little bit more so the skull would go up over the back and would look up more. There's also that. Oh no, Iron Man's in trouble, boys. For accessories, Iron Man comes with a couple of fists, comes with some splayed out hands, comes with another set of splayed out hands, but the wrists are kicked back and the fingers are slightly bent like he's about to shoot his repulsor. Then there's a set of splayed out hands with the wrist kicked back, hole in the palm for the effect piece. Same thing for the slightly bent finger look too. Easy enough to pop off that ball joint. The splayed out hand without the hole in it. For the straight fingers, I guess for a relaxed look, the piece of armor on the back isn't bent. But for the about to blast your ass hand, there is a kick up on the armor, and then the peg hole is angled back. So when you plug it in, it already has that kick up. And then the ones with the holes in them, They both have that kick up on the armor and the angled peg on the back. For those repulsor blast, it's kind of a translucent orangey material with a white, well, not white, it's kind of a peachy overspray at the base of the blast. It's almost angled. It looks like a rock formation or something, but it still works. Two of them have this J shape at the top. The other two have kind of this number 3 or something on them. Can't tell a difference in the actual pegs. And whether you're using it here or full on flight, it works either way. It looks good. There is also this removable piece right there. That is for the rocket piece. And when you first get it, you think that peg is long as hell, and you don't want to push too hard. You're afraid of breaking something, so it's kind of loose there. But go ahead and push, and there's a, well, it's not quite a snap, but it goes in snug. And that looks fantastic. That same shiny red up on top, the rocket itself is painted gold in there. If you haven't broken something by now, with all the moving around and throwing and everything, then you can trust me that this thing's pretty sturdy. Then there's the stand, which can seem a little bit over-engineered in places. I don't know why this cuts forward for this hinge joint, but it fits the overall feeling of this. Infinity Saga is embossed into the bottom. This is just kind of tampoed on. There's a hinge that goes side to side here. Hinge forward and back. Rotates on this point. In fact, does that? Yeah. It's a separate rod. Hinge up at the top there, and then another hinge outside of that. And then for the plug, that rotates in case you need to turn them sideways. That has the removable butt plate. Plug it in, and there's kind of a lock to it. It'll hold the weight up as long as you kind of have a balancing act. There's a screw there, and I tried to tighten it, but it didn't seem to want to tighten the actual arm. Or because of the ankles, oh, and that might be why this is kicked out like this, so you can angle it down and use it as a stand. I figured it out, yeah. As far as batteries and the light up feature, you're gonna need 4 AG1s, which is the Energizer 364. So tiny. I have already installed the one in the chest. It's just a simple matter of unscrewing this screw, and this whole assembly comes out. Batteries go there, and there is a tiny little button that turns the light on. And then it's kind of genius. You push on the arc reactor itself and it turns on. I don't know if you can see that in the bright light, but it's got a sculpted little triangle inside the circle. Oh, well, it's easier to see right there, isn't it? For the head, the separation point is between gold and red. Pull back on the top of the dome, it slides right off. There's another screw right here. Cover comes off, exposes the batteries and the switch right there. Now, if you want better leverage on it or something, you can remove that. Try not to lose the teeny tiny screw. You do have to remove the dome of the head to push this button. It is a button, it's not a switch. I tried to toggle it side to side. It wouldn't go. You just go boop, and then put the dome back on. And the lights are actually a bit brighter than I figured they'd be. It looks good. It looks realistic, what we saw in the movie. What happens when we start turning off lights? Not bad. In the dark, that looked fantastic. I don't know how long these batteries would last, but I like that it's a nice clear snap. It's not going to accidentally come on like we've had with other battery powered lights in the past. But here in the sizing comparisons is where we hit my biggest gripe. Iron Man stands at pretty much exactly 7 inches to the top of his head, and that's too large for 1/12 scale. Marvel Legends pushes slightly larger than 1/12, and even there, the ThreeZero towers above them. Is there something over here? Oh, there it is. Even going to some of the older Marvel Legends armors where, well, again, it's going to be big. He'd squash poor Obadiah. Here's the Marvel Legends in-game cap, and I think it's the Figma Iron Man. Not going to fit. That's not bad, but kind of jumping eras here. It just looks much more at home with 7-inch scale figures like the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Superman or the McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat Scorpion. So at the end of the day, it's an absolute shame about the size because the figure itself is absolutely magnificent. The fantastic sculpting detail, the beautiful sheens to the reds and the golds and how they contrast with each other, the silver intertwined in between. Brilliant engineering, great articulation. They tried to retain as much realism as possible. They didn't want any ugly gaps. In fact, they went as far as to make the armor plates move with the movement. But even that, I mean, in the movie it's CGI. This is actual plastic and metal. It just doesn't work like we see on screen. Now, it's not a shame if you're into 7-inch figures, if you do Marvel Select or the like, but this was advertised as 1/12. In fact, if you go back to the description, they say 6.5 inches, which they missed by ½ an inch. I don't know if there was something that had to be done between prototype and production. durability issues, or the size of something was too small and it had to be enlarged, therefore the whole thing enlarged. All I know is this won't fit with the rest of my Marvel collection. It's a nice enough figure to keep around on the desk and mess with, but it doesn't fit. I don't know how many different ways I can say it. It doesn't fit with the rest of my stuff. One silver lining, though, is that even though this is larger, that means the Hulkbuster that they're working on right now, that should be slightly larger too. And in that case, it's the Hulkbuster. I don't care if that thing's huge. It's gonna be bigger than all the rest of my figures. It will fit. And if that's bigger for $250, which that just seems like a hell of a deal. So I'm now more excited about that. But I still have this that comes apart and goes inside of that, which I don't have on my shelf yet. So maybe in that aspect, I can make this work. But for the moment, this is just my fiddle figure. This is just the one I'll mess around with. And honestly, it's the most beautiful Iron Man I have. It's just large. If you enjoyed this little sneak peek at the DLX Iron Man, comment, like, subscribe. Much love to the plus. If you're interested in seeing videos early or in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. Wherever you may be watching this, I'll always catch you on the Fwoosh. Yeah, finding that drop down to the thigh itself was a game changer. Before that, I thought, well, he can't get kneeled down. He can't do superhero landing. He can't do certain poses that I wanted him in. But as soon as I found that, click, click. Well, in fact, everything clicked together. So in movement, the only really nitpick I have now is how far the head goes back. I wish it would look up more. And don't go commenting that, oh, Robo, idiot, you're supposed to do this and it goes up and around and back. I don't think I missed anything, but if I did, let me know.